Thank you for joining us today on Indivisible. America, I'm your host, John Stubbins, and I want to get into a couple things. But before we do, this broadcast is running on live stream across all of our social media. That's YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and also freedomfirstnetwork.com and pilled.net. I want to get into something here that's just really eating away at me because we keep hearing about it, and yet the Democrats keep saying they don't want to talk about it. But let's ask ourselves, because the Republicans have uncovered another a batch of basic information on Burisma, on Hunter Biden. I'm sure everybody saw that in the news yesterday. So here's a question. Why is Burisma paying Hunter Biden millions of dollars? Or for that matter, John Kerry's son. I guess John Kerry and Hunter Biden, or John Kerry's son and Hunter Biden, are in business together. So, I just don't understand this. Okay, neither one of these people know anything about energy. They know nothing about gas, and yet they're getting paid millions of dollars by a Ukrainian company, gas company. They don't speak Ukrainian, they don't speak Russian, they have no knowledge. So why are they getting paid? Also, Joe Biden, was vice president at the time when this was going on, and Obama looked the other way. Yelena Baturina, who is the mayor of Moscow, is the one that issued some of these checks to Biden. And, you've heard for the last 4 years about Russia hoax, blaming President Trump for this supposed hoax. So I just don't understand it. And maybe somebody can explain it to me. How is it, again, this is all about projection. We talk about this every show. The Democrats tell you it's President Trump doing this and that with the Russians, but it's actually them. They're the ones that are doing things with the Russians. You saw with Obama, the information where he said, he said, we'll be able to talk about this more after the election. And then come to find out that the Bidens are involved with this Ukrainian company, Burisma. So on top of that, what about Joe Biden being introduced to the Chinese Communist Party by his son Hunter? That happened. That's real. So why are they getting billions of dollars from the Chinese? Once again, same question. So Hunter Biden and John Kerry's son, again, have no experience in energy. If you can't smell the corruption here, if you can't see what's happening here, then we've got a real problem, because this is all about projection from the Democrats. While they're under your nose, again, look at the shiny object over here. We're going to blame President Trump for this nonsense. And the reality is that it hasn't been President Trump. It's been Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the Obama administration. Now we find out John Kerry's son is in business with Biden. Okay. And they're over there getting paid millions of dollars, and there's nothing corrupt going on here. You've got to be kidding me. This is the craziest thing that I have ever seen. And so please, America, I think you need to start asking questions and start sending in the information to your senators and congressmen. I want to welcome onto the show Michael Johns. Michael, thanks for coming on. Michael is a healthcare executive. He's co-founder of the Tea Party movement, and also a former speechwriter for the White House for President George H.W. Bush. He's also a contributor on Fox, Fox Business, C-SPAN, regular commentator there, and has written for the Wall Street Journal, the Christian Science Monitor, and National Review. Welcome to the show, Michael. Michael?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey,
okay, good. Welcome to the show.
Well, apparently you need to turn the volume up on these speakers, huh?
I guess so. Yeah, that would help, brother. Welcome to the show, Michael. Like I said, I don't know if you got to hear my opening. I was talking about Burisma and Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's connection there. Also, John Kerry's son, and then also and millions of dollars, by the way, given by this Yelena Baturina, who was the mayor of Moscow, and on top of that, the billions of dollars given to the Bidens through the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And I thought you might want to comment on that.
Absolutely. I think this is a crucially important issue, and again points out the hypocrisy in media coverage, because, I mean, to the extent any of this were going on with Jared Kushner or Ivanka, I guarantee you we would have media all over it, congressional hearings, references to the FBI and DOJ, which encouragingly I actually just saw that Rand Paul has done. But look, so the Senate committee has been looking at this for a while. This is the Homeland Security Committee. Ron Johnson, others have done some really extraordinary work on this. The findings are still in a preliminary state, but they're already overwhelming. It clearly shows that in these 8 years of the Obama-Biden administration, while we can't really name anything that Biden accomplished in those 8 years or his 47 years in Washington, the one thing that he clearly has accomplished is enriched his family and son into the many millions of dollars in trading his positional authority for money. And that's true, as you referenced, very concerningly, with the Chinese Communist Party and the fact that they have invested in his fund. In fact, I think it was right after one of the state visits that Biden, in fact, made there, under which Hunter was given Secret Service protection and was actually a formal part of that visit. It's clearly true, as we've been talking about, at least I've been talking about for at least a year, with Burisma. Burisma is a corrupt energy company in Ukraine, on which Hunter Biden was placed on the board of directors of this very large company, large but corrupt. And let me just tell you something just right there. Let's just start. So we've got him managing millions of dollars from the CCP in China. We've got him on the board of directors on an energy company in Ukraine. He has no expertise in China. He has no expertise in Ukraine. He has no expertise in finance and money management and fund management or investor relations. He has no background or expertise in energy. So both functionally and geographically, totally unqualified for both of these. And now on top of it, as you just alluded to, the $3.5 million, which appears to have arrived from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, part of the Russian elite, for purposes that I'm not even sure have been clearly defined yet. And then a whole lot of questions about even the outflows of this money. This guy, and I'm not saying this disparagingly, because there's many Americans who've had it, but he's had drug addiction issues for quite a long time. He has a lot of personal problems. I think many of us can sympathize with those, but let's cut to the chase and recognize that he has been trading off of his last name, almost certainly with the support from his father. These are not things that would have gotten done on his own. and they just so happen to coincidentally follow, in several cases, visits by Biden to these respective countries. And then, of course, you can see the leverage that Biden bragged about in that now famous, or infamous, I should say, Council on Foreign Relations speech, where he talked about not releasing the U.S. foreign aid to Ukraine unless the prosecutor who was looking into Burisma and Hunter Biden's relationship, how he was leveraging that relationship with the company,
Right.
was fired. By the way, that's what's called real collusion.
Yes.
Donald Trump never colluded with Russia. There's nothing going on there. As we wasted 2 years proving that point.
3 years, really 3 years. And let me just say something here. I'm not seeing anything tied to President Trump in regards to Russia, but I'm seeing quite a lot here tied to Biden and the Obama administration.
Well, and you can also see the correlation in policies, meaning for all of the talk of Trump having some relationship with Putin and the Russians, which he has had no illegal relationship with them at all. In fact, I would say that the conversations throughout that transition period, which were pretty limited to like Michael Flynn's call and speaking with the ambassador, they're pretty limited. I was thinking at the time about the fact that one of the criticisms that would come quickly is how would you enter into this new administration without having formulated some sort of relationship with a major global power like that. There were not extensive. If anything, there were limited discussions between the transition team and Putin and the embassy officials in D.C. In the case of Biden, however, let's be clear. You have the corruption investigation on Ukraine essentially goes nowhere after he threatens, has the prosecutor fired, and gets his son on the board.
Right.
And in the case of China's Communist Party, I mean, you can clearly see that it was 8 years of complete capitulation to Beijing. They stood up for nothing. They allowed all of this intellectual property theft to occur on their watch. All of these FBI investigations and even arrests now that are occurring with CCP officials having infiltrated various institutions, academic institutions, scientific research institutions, even a New York Police Department precinct in Queens the other day. This is extraordinary, the magnitude of infiltration that Communist China has in this country. And I've been saying for a long time that, not to be repetitive about it, but these are immensely serious people. These are immensely smart people. They know this country and they understand and believe that there are weaknesses that they can and intend to exploit. And what is their end game? What is their end goal? Their position is to be economically, politically, militarily, the leader of the world and to displace us in all of those respects. It's a very ambitious plan. It's being overseen by Xi Jinping, president for life now in China. And of course, all of these human rights abuses, including the jailing and re-education camp placement of 2 to 3 million Uyghurs, happened on the watch of Biden. The suppression of Hong Kong began on their watch. The crushing of Tibetan independence movements happened on their watch. The disappearance of any forces of opposition, including journalists who had written even a little bit critically or in questioning ways about the regime, disappear. This is one of the worst human rights abusing regimes in the world. And that would be the first time we confronted that. But it's the first time we're confronting it, having been essentially complicit in it. And that's my point right now, is that the rise of China has been a 30-year phenomenon, but the last 8 years under Obama and Biden were almost criminal neglect.
Yes.
They did nothing from the standpoint of putting any degree of pressure on them. They allowed all this intellectual property theft. Is just extraordinary. I mean, the amount of things that have been stolen, never challenging the forced technology transfer. I mean, you go to do business in China, you got to hand them the product manual. They're going to know how everything works, or you cannot do business there. Their tariffs never challenged, unlike President Trump, who did challenge them. And let's face it, our corporate tax rate was 35% under Obama and Biden. President Trump brought it down to 21. All right. China, it's deceiving, and they manipulate their currency and whatnot, but they have a 25% corporate rate. We now have Biden, who's going to move it back up into the high 20s and make us again less competitive with China. They've taken millions of jobs. They have expanded their influence to the point where they're really becoming very difficult to challenge in the South China Sea, which is one of the key waterways for the transmittability and transportation of key trading supplies and routes. They've become unbelievably aggressive with the Silk Road Initiative, which has placed many of these developing countries into unbelievable amounts of debt, so that they could, basically forcing them to finance Chinese development projects in these respective countries. It's going to be an explosion of default problems when they can't meet these payments. It's already happening, where
Right.
the CCP has gone in and seized assets, including ports and major infrastructure, when they haven't met the payments. I mean, we're getting to a point where in Latin America, Africa, the Caribbean, South Asia, ultimately, if we don't act assertively and get our arms around this quickly, given the 8 years of neglect under Obama and Biden, they're going to be able to turn the lights out on all these regions. Their influence is undeniable.
Yeah, and let me just state, and I'm going to get to something else here about this thing, but I go back and I look at everything that's transpired. Okay, like I said, you remember the little discussion with the hand on the lap. You know, we'll be able to get to this after the election. You know, fast forward to what we've learned now about Biden and with the Obama administration, and I'm going to tell you right now, again, this is very important for the American people to understand. You know, because the Democrats keep trying to focus this laser beam on President Trump and the Trump administration dealing with Russia. Okay. And all we're uncovering here, all that we're seeing is Biden and Obama and their dealings with Russia. And
when did the occupation of Crimea, did that happen on Donald Trump's watch? No, it happened on Obama and Biden's watch, and they did essentially nothing about it. I can remember at the time, you know, Comedy Central calling me up because they knew I had a fairly hardline position on Russia. And I didn't go on because I know the angle was going to be, what do you think the Russians are going to be in Brooklyn? But it's amazing to see the complete spin of positions that they've had on this, meaning they tried to downplay the Crimea thing. Then it became politically convenient. You know, they tried to upplay it during the impeachment processes. The reality is Trump has been amazingly assertive with Russia. That's not to say he doesn't have a working relationship. He does. You know, you need to be able to get Putin on the phone, but we are challenging them on every one of these fronts. He was the first. Obama and Biden did nothing to really arm Ukraine. They sent them all non-military supplies, basically humanitarian supplies. President's given them lethal capabilities to defend themselves against a real threat. And look, I mean, nothing new here. I mean, I began my own political involvement during the Cold War, so I'm sort of, I think, accustomed to this. But you know, does Putin have designs of expanding his empire beyond what is now traditional Russia? Probably, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And he's engaged in all kinds of things. He's manipulating elections all over the world. He's financing and buying off agents. But let me just tell you, between Russia and China, if you press me on what is the bigger threat,
Absolutely.
The seriousness of the Communist Party of China is
no doubt about it. I just want to make this point because it's important for Americans to know, Americans that aren't following this as closely as you and I do, that it's not President Trump. Okay, this light has been shined on him. Russia. We've heard this now for almost 4 years. Okay, this whole Russia hoax, the whole Steele dossier, the spying on Carter Page, what happened with General Flynn, George Papadopoulos, all of this nonsense, all of these hearings, millions of dollars wasted. And you know what, America? It had nothing to do with President Trump, nothing to do with his administration, whether before he was elected, after he was elected. It was all Obama and Biden. And I want to make that very clear because they're trying to get you to see something that's not there when it was them doing this. Okay? We're covering that.
We're at a point right now, obviously, anybody says they know that the outcome of this election in November is lying. I mean, I'm hopeful that the president will be reelected. I believe he's going to be reelected. I see a lot of positive arguments and cases that are going to be made. And I've just gone through, I really don't think Biden has one singular accomplishment he can point to in these 47 years. And now he's just had now he's got a DOJ corruption investigation that's just been forwarded by Rand Paul which better be taken seriously to this DOJ. But let me just talk about this DOJ for a while, because I'm quite sure we don't have the entire full story, but I'm very concerned about what I would say has been a lack of speed and a lack of seriousness, even, that's been brought to the Carter Page issue. Okay, America needs justice over that illegal surveillance. Carter Page needs justice too. And it's clear to me that this still ongoing investigation, which we were supposed to have concrete results by Labor Day, right? We're now into sort of like the third week of September. Still really nothing. The only singular indictment, low-level official that was basically hand-delivered to them. And it's concerning to me that Barack Obama not been even interviewed but as part of this investigation. Joe Biden not even interviewed as part of this investigation. Hillary Clinton, as I think you said earlier, who arranged for the financing of the dossier of lies that was presented to the FISA court to obtain the FISA warrant and to continue to have the application for that warrant renewed. That is a very serious, those are very serious criminal issues, allegations, if you want to call them that. But they're, to me, they're pretty clear cut. And you're talking about not even, for all the focus that we've placed on the possible manipulation of an election by Russia, which I don't think there's any evidence they impacted even one vote in this country. Having a government have surveillance on their political opponent in an election year is terrifying. It defies all of the foundations of democracy and liberty and freedom. It is what you see in third world dictatorships, and now to have a Department of Justice that seems to be sort of just dragging its feet along and hasn't the prosecutor now working on this was appointed back in May of 2019. So he's been at this thing for going on a year and a half, and you have primary players in this who have not even been contacted or interviewed. And we know Joe Biden sat in the Oval Office when they designed, authorized, and discussed the process under which they were going to set up.
He tried to deny it. He tried to deny it, but he got busted.
It's a demonstrable record, okay? I mean, it's there. It's on the record. It's incredible. If he's denying it, it's one in a long, long, long series of lies that this guy's been telling for 47 years. I'm not expecting or asking Joe Biden to settle this issue. I am expecting that this Department of Justice, which has unfortunately its image has become very tarnished as being highly politicized, still to this day, even after the entire series of events, with their they're fighting judicial watch on discovery and document requests. Why are they doing that? I mean, and I do understand the predicament of the president of not wanting to be seen to be intervening in an investigation that has a political dynamic. But ultimately, when your Department of Justice is not cooperating on FOIA requests, on document requests, what are you hiding? And I don't see the serious questioning, the media scrutiny that is warranted. And I think we've got now two clear channels, maybe more, of possible criminality of the Obama-Biden administration. I mean, the one was the illegal surveillance, all of the components, all of the lies that were told about it, all of the concealment. Now we find out Mueller's phones, 27 of them, 27 phones, I think, were completely wiped.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton style. The only thing missing was hammers
and the bleach bit.
And then okay, so you have that, and then you have the Biden issues I just discussed, and ongoing still this investigation into the Clinton Foundation, which was sort of the most artful trading of political influence for cash in the history of modern man. And I'm still not over the email thing. I mean, I don't know what, and this is where we lose the debate, by the way. I notice on our side, there's this trepidation and want to talk about these things. Yet I had a chance, this is a few years ago now, to talk to that 19-year-old kid who did a year in jail because he took a photo of a nuclear submarine he was stationed on and sent it back to his girlfriend. That kid did like 13 or 14 months in federal prison.
Yes.
Hillary Clinton had every single 100% of her emails, including communication at the highest levels of classification, stored illegally in an off-site server that she herself owned and controlled, and then deleted and destroyed thousands of emails that were under request as part of the investigation into it. So you have violation, I believe, at a high level of the handling of classified information, which is a very serious crime. You know, and she acts like she didn't know it. She was, Secretary of State.
She's a liar.
She was brief, complete. No. There's even documents that you sign when you enter there, sort of acknowledging what you can and cannot do. It's this stuff. And she was briefed, and she signed the documents acknowledging that you're not allowed to have off-site servers. It's like we're talking to a fifth grader here.
Yeah.
And of course, they were, by most counts, accessed by foreign players, including possibly, or certainly, I would say almost certainly, Russia and China.
Yeah.
Into every one of these communications that she had, and then to destroy them when they're under investigation, and you've been given a preservation of documents request, which is procedurally what you do in an investigation. That she receives the preservation of documents and then says, "I went through them. I destroyed." I don't know. I forget the number now. What was it? Was it 30,000 or
30,000? It was over 30,000. But look, let me just say something here. Okay,
30,000 emails that she alone, in coordination with one of her aides, decided weren't related to the investigation. Yep. We'll have no idea what was ever in those 33,000 emails. It's an extraordinary betrayal of service. And the fact that we're sitting here now weeks away from possibly handing this country over to a guy who was essentially a co-conspirator in all of this stuff, did nothing to stop it, and enriched his family, leveraged relationships, including with hostile countries, in ways that were almost certainly detrimental to the security interests of our nation, is absolutely extraordinary. I think I missed your opening, but I have to say, wake up, America. This guy cannot be made president of the United States.
No. And by the way, let me just say this. Bill Clinton trying to deny that he was on Epstein's flights also, and the Clintons, Hillary Clinton, they funneled dirty money from China. Doris Matsui helped them with that. It's always the Clintons. It's always someone else.
Donna Shalala, who was president of the university I attended, is now a member of Congress, was president of that foundation. To my knowledge, I don't think she's been questioned about the whole thing.
And it just
questioned her.
Yeah, it bothers me because the Clintons, whether it's Hillary, whether it's Bill, whether it's both of them, they always blame somebody else. They're never, ever held accountable.
Because it works. Apparently it works. Now
it's happening with Biden and with Obama. They're not held accountable. Let me get to something else about this, because I was reading this today by Greg Jarrett, Extortion, Bribery, and Sex Trafficking, the Truth About Hunter Biden. And, a year-long Senate investigation into Hunter Biden's foreign handlings concluded just 41 days before the election, leaving Republicans with major leverage over Biden's campaign. Now, this guy is involved in human trafficking. Okay, we see the same pattern with Bill Clinton. Okay, I tell you what, people, I've had enough of Bill and Hillary Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama and Joe Biden.
And why
out on charges for treason.
Massive props to Senator Rand Paul for sending that report over to the Department of Justice and asking that they be given a formal criminal review. But why is federal law enforcement on these issues not doing their job?
Christopher Wray needs to be fired. Christopher Wray needs to be fired immediately.
Well, he's certainly taken a lot of heat over the last 24 hours for downplaying the threat of Antifa. And I don't know if that is a lack of knowledge on his part, or
Black Lives Matter,
whether it's a political tactic designed to diminish their. I don't know, but I find that troubling as well. We know Antifa exists. We know they're an international terrorist organization.
BLM.
The president, to his credit, labeled them such. That's one of the great threats in this country right now, particularly heading into this contentious SCOTUS nomination and confirmation, I hope, and what I believe will be President Trump's reelection.
And also BLM, Michael.
Got to be stopped. Hey, and look, I guess we're always never saying too many positive things about Democrats, and I was really saddened that the Kentucky governorship went to a Democrat in the last race. And I pointed that race many times, because if the Libertarian hadn't been in it, the Republican would have won it if those Libertarian votes had gone GOP. But props to the Democrat governor of Kentucky for bringing in, the National Guard on this issue in Louisville last night. Why would you not utilize the resources available to you when you have uprisings of this nature? And it continues. I don't want to say it doesn't. We always say it confuses or confounds us. We know what's going on.
Yeah.
But to have Seattle, Portland, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington D.C., Chicago, probably could rattle a few other cities off completely in states of lawlessness is inexcusable, and it's unbecoming of the nation that we project that we are.
and let's be real clear, because and this bothers me when people bring up Antifa, but they somehow leave Black Lives Matter out of it. BLM is in cahoots with Antifa, and they go hand in hand. And I'm tired of hearing about one without the other, because BLM is doing just as much damage, if not more, with their Marxist movement and with their 1619 project and white fragility and infiltration of our schools and infiltration. Look, here's the bottom line.
Well, look, they hit the soft spot. To their credit, they hit the soft spot.
Yeah.
The worst thing, no one in this country of goodwill, me, you, the worst thing we could ever be called would be racist. And we're not, and it kills and it hurts, and they know it does. And the marketing of that organization, particularly the name that they selected, was raw genius. But they are indisputably Marxist. The three founders acknowledge it in their own statements. And since that's come out, I've not seen any attempt on them to say, oh no, we didn't really mean what we said. They are not just Marxist ideologically, they're trained in Marxist tactics.
Okay.
And
hold on one second, Michael.
They're almost exclusively violent.
They've also been
extortion.
They've also been scrubbing their website. They did it again 2 days ago, where they took down off of their website that they want to destroy the nuclear family. Before that, it was defund the police.
Well, they're on record for
their Marxist intentions. They keep taking things off their website because they know that people have figured their crap out.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, when we founded the Tea Party movement, it never crossed my mind to go out to corporate America and ask for support, even though, in essence, in cutting some corporate tax rates and regulations, companies and those they employ would have been beneficiaries of that. Here's a movement that's literally out destroying economies of major cities, inflicting now well over $1 billion of damage and having taken 15 lives. And you got some of the country's most prominent brand names, Fortune 500 companies that have kicked in and supporting this. And I'm going to share with you my innovative idea on this issue, because no one in these organizations on our side seems to be thinking too creatively about this. But just take Amazon, which put $10 million into BLM. Why are we not pressuring Amazon? And why are Amazon shareholders not pressuring Amazon to assume financial responsibility for the $1 billion+ damage that the organization they funded created in the streets of our country? That obligation should not have to fall on taxpayers. Cities shouldn't have to be going out and float additional municipal bonds to finance what, in essence, as you correctly said, has been terrorist level destruction in these streets. Let's stop talking around it. And by the way, don't be afraid about it either, because I'm looking at polls on this is a Gallup from like a week ago that showed great degrees of concerns by Americans about the impact on law enforcement, that there's not going to be a sufficient amount of law enforcement available in their community. The concern by African Americans over that fact exceeds that of the general population. It was over 80% of African Americans are concerned that the violence against law enforcement is going to prove detrimental to the prevention of crime and the stability of their communities. So I'll just put it this way: Black Lives Matter does not speak for African Americans. And you've heard a whole bunch of African Americans come out and make that statement. We need props to like Herschel Walker and guys like that for doing it. That's what a patriot, and many others just need to start doing it, because, and let's be honest, it's not even an African American movement. I mean,
hold on a second. It is, and it was formed by 3 African American homosexuals. That's a fact.
3 women. Yeah.
They're 3 trained Marxists.
I know.
I've done my research on this. I've studied it inside out. And let me just say another thing. I've been on top of this on this story since before it ever began. I've been following this movement since back to Trayvon Martin. I know exactly what these people are about. I know the lies that they've told, and it's lie after lie after lie. And they got a bunch of people that hate white people, quite frankly, to jump on board with this movement. And Obama and his Obama phones were part of that community organizing. But let me say something else, and this is important.
Medicaid expansion was part of the opioid crisis.
Yeah, and let me just say this, very important, because I heard you say don't be afraid. Look, I'm not afraid, number one. Number two, if any Americans out there, I got to believe that most of you are just pissed off. But for those of you that are afraid, you need to smarten up, because there's nothing to be afraid of. Number one. Number two, it is time to put your foot down on this crap. And that's what it is. It's crap. It's lies. And let me go on. Yesterday, U-Haul pulls up, right? Unload shields, weapons, signs. What else? Right?
Two
officers were shot in Louisville last night.
Yeah.
They captured a suspect by the name of Lorenzo Johnson. And, look, this Breonna Taylor, I'm sorry that she's dead.
Absolutely.
That's horrible. Okay. But, I also didn't know that Breonna Taylor has been involved with drug dealers and drugs. So, again, I keep saying that.
The story's not being told there. I mean, just to, clarify it, there is a judge, not police, a judge signs a no-knock warrant for the resident.
You have to use it.
With considerable prosecutorial belief that drugs were being run out of the residence. Okay. Now you indicate that she has a history of that. So we might be 1 for 1 up to there. All right. The no-knock warrant is executed.
But they knocked, Michael.
And then the boyfriend opened fire on law enforcement. Now, it's difficult, I think, for many American people to put yourself in that situation. And law enforcement in this country go through a lot of training about de-escalation measures, about self-defense. It's all designed to make sure few injuries and hopefully no injuries take place in any of these interactions. But one of the exceptions is when you start opening fire on law enforcement, they're trained to fire back. They have no alternative. Now, I wasn't there. You weren't there. Joe Biden wasn't there. And so you're going to have to let this thing play out through the investigation. And I guess there were a few indictments yesterday, so maybe learn more about it.
Yeah.
But here's a general rule of thumb. Don't fire weapons at law enforcement, and listen to law enforcement when they're investigating. They're not, I know so many people, including at high levels in it, they are not in the business and it's a horrible thing for them when something like this occurs. Those guys are they're never going to get over this in this lifetime. They don't go home and just go, oh, hey, these are good people, and they don't want to be in this situation. Now, that's just rhetoric. Let me give you the numbers, which are hugely important, and they're documentable, they're certifiable, they're factual. You can look them up yourself. There were 375 million interactions last year between law enforcement and American citizens. So that's literally more than 1 per person. That's an extraordinary number of interactions. Among that entire population, there were 19 Caucasian Americans who were unarmed and killed by law enforcement, and 9 Black Americans unarmed.
They don't care. They don't care, Michael.
So a few things about those numbers, though. These are just the facts. You can reject them, I guess, if you want, but facts are important and dangerous.
They are important, but they don't care.
Okay. But okay, so what I'm laying out is 19 plus 9, 28 out of 375 million is an infantile percentage.
Yep.
Further, those 28 all have individual circumstances, which largely include some degree of resistance or aggression on behalf of the defendants. And and there were over twice as many Caucasian Americans unarmed killed by law enforcement than there were Black Americans. So the thesis that has guided this whole multi-month campaign of destruction, chaos, and 15 people gone dead is based on a lie. The lie is that there is systemic racism in the use of lethal force against unarmed African Americans. That is not true.
That's right.
Now, if the position were that there is systemic racism in maybe African Americans being more inclined to be pulled over, or maybe police being a little more on guard, a lot of these, like, I went to college at University of Miami. A lot of law enforcement in Overtown and Liberty City, and these locations are working in probably very different ways than they are in Coconut Grove. I mean, they know that any stop just statistically could be a problem. It, in their eyes, is not about race. It's about concerns. Now, I think a lot of progress has been made. There's more progress that needs to be made. But where this movement miscalculated completely is in not being honest about the nature of what they want to accomplish. And those numbers that I just cited really need to get out. The American people need to realize law enforcement in this country is laudable, doing good work every single day in all kinds of ways. This is not an easy job. They're not compensated very highly. They're very closely micromanaged, constantly put into stressful situations. The worst thing you can do, as de Blasio just did, is cut out 20-some% of the police budget. You're going to reduce the amount of training and oversight that could potentially be helpful.
Yeah, they don't care. Okay. So you can come and you can spout every stat that's to a reasonable person, and reasonable people do care about the stats. But you cannot negotiate with these people. They don't want to negotiate. No. And as soon as Americans understand that, then we can move on and form a plan, because they don't care about the numbers. Okay. All they care about is Black man gets attacked by white man.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know the magnitude of my involvement in everything. These guys won't debate me. They won't come on with me and talk about these issues. And they won't, because they'll be decimated. So what they do is they go out and project all of this violence, chaos, and I believe up to really extortion. Do this or the city burns. How many times? Right. We just heard it again on this SCOTUS announcement. I was just and let me just going through some of these quotes of some of these things are unbelievable that are being said.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, Michael. Before we get to SCOTUS, let me just hit this, because this is very important. Okay. America, you've got to wake up to this understanding. There are two elements at play here with BLM and Antifa. Two that really matter to us, to people of common sense, to people that the stats do matter to. And it's this. On one hand, you've got this Marxist movement that is tied into the CCP, Islamic jihadism. It's tied into the Black Liberation Army, the Weather Underground, all of that, which I did a whole show on with Trevor Loudon. The second element of this is pure criminality. These are criminals that do not want to be held accountable for their criminal behavior. And if they can get police out of the way, then their criminal enterprise grows. And there's no one there to stop them.
Well, no,
Wake up, America.
One thing, I think one of the benefits, which I didn't realize at the time, is I've spent a lot of time early in my career in literally in revolutionary environments in Nicaragua and Angola, Cambodia. You never remove law enforcement, you replace law enforcement.
Okay.
No, here's this is the important point. If you go and look at what they tried to do in Chaz, where they made it a law enforcement free area, right? They carried the guns in that area. They enforced what they perceived to be in their crazed minds the law.
But it's not lawful.
Two kids were killed in less than 2 weeks.
Yep.
So it was set up as an experiment designed to show the country that we as Americans can facilitate day-to-day without law enforcement. It's not true. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And if you don't have a good guy with a gun, the bad guy with the gun is completely unrestricted in his ability to wreak havoc across this country. And that is the design. The design is not to have no law enforcement. The design is for them to play the role of enforcing the laws, defining the laws, circumventing completely our democratic and constitutional republic.
Yeah, we can call it whatever we want, replace, reinvent, whatever they want to call it. The bottom line is these are criminals that don't want to have checks and balances on their behavior. It's that simple. They want to rule. And here's what's really dynamic about all, especially with BLM. Okay, BLM, so we went through the civil rights era where we decided that racism is bad, discrimination is bad. And then, by the way, these were all Democrats, Jim Crow, KKK, all Democrats. So we went through that era. We went through busing. We went through affirmative action. We went through all this nonsense. And now they want, now that they think they have power, now it's okay to be racist as long as it's against white people.
Well, here's my message at this moment. Because one of the things I've attempted to do, hopefully I've done well, is to provide balanced, seasoned leadership, but not to dodge the issues either, in our movement and in leading patriots across our country. I believe if you are in a position of authority right now, whether it's elected office, whether it's in a law enforcement capacity, whether it's in federal government, you have an obligation to come out and to put on the record adamantly your call for an end to violence in the streets across the country. You don't even need to get into all of the issues of how bad and dangerous these groups are, but you do have an obligation to call for an end to it. And let me just say, I am immensely disturbed, and I hope all voters are disturbed by the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have really not done that. And in the case of Kamala Harris, she's even lauded praise on these people.
They're helping to bail them out.
She didn't show up at the funerals of those 2 kids in Seattle who were killed in this horrific experiment. They're not legitimate. And I'm telling you that the one thing everyone who's seen Marxist movements ascend in countries around the world learns is that they act like they care about the people. They say it's about the people. They say it's about injustice. And once they take power, the people are just about the last of their concerns.
That's right.
The poor get poorer, and whatever lawlessness exists and injustice exists gets even worse.
They're
The
bailing
most horrific human rights violators in this entire world are Marxist regimes.
They're bailing them out, Michael. They're bailing them out.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask if you saw the Kamala Harris's fund that she's been promoting.
Yes.
Among the beneficiaries of bail money from that fund were domestic abusers, including one guy who hit his girlfriend like 8 times with a closed fist.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're a female voter out there looking at this election right now, realize, forget the rhetoric, the Biden and Harris agenda has been to promote those funds and to aid domestic abusers. And by the way, if you had a big article come out like that with a fund that you've been promoting, wouldn't your first step be to disassociate yourself from the fund? Why has she not done that? And where are the calls for her to do that?
They don't care.
One of the reasons this is so frustrating, and I think you can hear the frustration in both of our voices, is this presidential race is only one candidate's being covered. I mean, there are literally none of these questions being presented to any of these guys. Why has she not disassociated herself with a bail fund that is now on record as having benefited domestic abusers at the expense of those victims?
Because number one, they don't care. And number two, that is their militant arm of the Democratic Party, period. And we've got to move on. We've got about 3 minutes left. I want to move on to the SCOTUS pick, and I know you got a couple quotes, but let me just tell Americans, we've got Amy Coney Barrett running out of the 7th Circuit. We've got Bridget Bade running out of the U.S. Court of Appeals, 9th Circuit, and Barbara Lagoa running out of the U.S. Court of Appeals, 11th Circuit. What do you think about the race? Obviously, people think that Coney Barrett is the favorite. What do you think, Michael?
Comfortable with all those nominees, and I'm very comfortable with the judgment of the president and his advisors on this. I think the most important point, which I can't even believe we're having to make, is that Article 2, Section 2 of our Constitution makes this a completely clear-cut set of actions. I could not believe the day after Ginsburg's passing to wake up and see media were saying, "Well, now what? What do we do? What do we do?" Like there was no playbook for how this is done. There's dozens upon dozens of nominees in an election year that have been put forward. The Senate has an advise and consent responsibility, which I know they'll take seriously. And then there needs to be a confirmation vote on this nominee. This idea that somehow we're going to wait around until the next president is not in the Constitution. And by the way, I think it's a real disservice to the legacy of Ginsburg that she allowed her relatives purportedly to put those words in her mouth, because she knows the Constitution. She knows Article 2, Section 2.
I don't believe
that. That is exactly the legacy that I would think she would want to dissociate herself with, of placing politics and political interests above the rule of law.
I don't believe she said it for 1 second.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah, I think it's her family who are Democrats that want people to vote that way. Listen, by the way, at the bottom of the screen here, you can see we've got to reach Michael on Twitter at Michael Johns, and on Facebook, Michael Johns Tea Party. Make sure that you engage with Michael. We're obviously going to continue to have Michael back because he's become a regular contributor on my show, and we're thrilled to have him. But I only had these topics written down today because I knew there was no way we were going to get any further than what we got just on these several topics. And there's so much to add to it. We could have gone further today than we did. And you and I both know that no matter who President Trump nominates Saturday, they're going to come after him. They're going to disparage, besmirch. They're going to tear them down, go after their family. They don't care. These people have no shame. It's just like I said before, in 2024, in 2028, in 2032, you can put the message in a bottle today and open it in each of those years. And here's what the message is going to say. whoever's running on the Republican side is a racist, because that's who they call everybody. You can write it down as pure as I can, milk in my mouth. That's what they're going to do. Everybody's a racist if you're not a Democrat. America, thank you for joining us today. I want you to thank our audience, and we were thrilled to have Michael on. He'll be back, obviously. Make sure that you
stay optimistic, stay peaceful.
Yes.
Vote for President Trump, the Republicans in your congressional races.
Vote red down the board. Straight down the board.
And trust us that we know what we're doing, because I think we do. And our ideas are the better ones, and they're going to prevail.
They will. And listen, the Democrats are lying to you people. If you're still listening to their nonsense, do some real research. If you love liars, then I guess you'll vote for them. But if you love this country and you love truth, do some research and find out just how badly you've been lied to for a very, very long time. Thanks for joining us again today, America. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.